6.6. The method of markers. Like the method of sealed bids, this method works for situations where there are discrete items that cannot be subdivided at will. The advantage of this method is that there does not need to be cash available to smooth out any imbalances, as is required by the method of sealed bids. However, this method does require that all of the items be of similar value, and generally works best when there are several items and or the individual items are not particularly valuable. I am using 5 steps, where our textbook uses a preliminary step and 3 other steps. The only real difference is that I am breaking one of the textbook steps into 2 separate steps for the sake of clarity. Step 1. The items are arranged randomly in some sort of clear order. In the example in the textbook, which is copied into step 3 below, there is a collection of 20 pieces of candy being split up among 4 people. Step 2. Each player privately writes down his own division of the string of items into as many equally valued segments as there are players. If there are n players, then each player is writing down their own divisions of the string of items into n equally valued segments. In the example below, there are 4 players. This means that each player is breaking the string of items into 4 segments that are of equal value to them. Step 3. Place markers in with the string of items that show the beginning and ending of the fair shares according to each player. If the players are player A, player B, player C, and player D, the string of items will now look something like the picture below. Notice each marker is labeled with both a letter and a number. For example, the marker labeled A1 marks the end of share 1 and the beginning of share 2 according to player A. Also, the marker labeled C3 marks the end of share 3 and the beginning of share 4 according to player C. Step 3. Place markers in with the string of items that show the beginning and ending of the fair shares according to each player. Step 3. Place markers in with the string of items that show the beginning and ending of the fair shares according to each player. If the players are player A, player B, player C, and player D, the string of items will now look something like the picture below. Each marker is labeled with both a letter and a number. For example, the marker labeled A1 marks the end of share 1 and the beginning of share 2 according to player A. Also, the marker labeled C3 marks the end of share 3 and the beginning of share 4 according to player C. The color coding on the markers in this example is not really necessary. Step 4. Time to allocate the candy. Starting from the left, find the first marker with a 1. This is B1. Player 4 will get the 4 items to the left of her B1 marker. Remove all of player B's markers. Next, continuing to move to the left, stop at the first marker with a 2. Now that B2's markers are gone, that is C2. Player C's second share runs from the marker C1 to the marker C2. This is candies 7, 8, and 9. Give this share to player C and remove player C's markers. Notice that we skipped over candies 5 and 6. We will deal with these candies and a couple of other candies that fall between the shares in the last step. Continuing to the left, the first remaining marker with a 3 A3. Player A's third share runs from marker A2 to A3. and his candies 12 through 16. Give these candies to player A. Only player D is left. Find player D's marker D3 and give player D all of the candies to the right of that marker. Step 5. Candies 5, 6, 10, and 11 fell between the shares that were awarded. At this point, everyone has a share that they decided was fair, and we also have this candy left over. We call it the surplus. The surplus is usually divided randomly among the players. This can be a bit of a sticking point if the number of surplus items is not evenly divisible by the number of players. This division of the surplus is the final step of the process. Now let's work an example question from the beginning. Here's our example question. Quinn, Raymond, Ramon, Stefan, and Tim are dividing a collection of 18 classic superhero comic books using the method of markers. The comic books are randomly lined up in the array shown. The value of the comic books in the eyes of each player is shown in the table. Complete parts A through D below. Alright, so here's the array, right? They're laid out side by side. So I've copied the array down here and I've just numbered each one to make it easier to refer to. So somehow what we're going to go through and do is put the markers in for each person. So we have Quentin, Ramon, Stefan, and Tim. Alright, each B, by the way, in case you're curious, according to my teenage sources in any case, B stands for Batman, G for Green Lantern, S for Superman, W for Wonder Woman. I didn't have any idea. Okay. B is worth 12 to Quentin, 9 to Raymond, 8 to Stefan, 5 to Tim. So 12, 9, 8, 5. So B, 12, 9, 8, 5. Let's find all the B's. 12, 9, 8, 5. 12, 9, 8, 5. That's all the B's. Each G is worth 7, 5, 7, and 4. 7, 5, 7, 4. This is not exactly exciting, isn't it? Is it? 7, 5, 7, 4. But it's only going to take a minute. Well, 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, each S is worth 4, 5, 6, and 4. 4, 5, 6, 4. 4, 5, 6, 4. Just a couple more S's. And one more S. 4, 5, 6, 4. And then the last type is W, 6, 11, 14, and 7. Okay. So there's the value of each one. Now I think that the best next step is to get a total value of all of them for each of our players. All right, using my calculator, I added them all up, and for Quentin they add to 120. For Ramon, they also add to 120. For Stefan, they add to 144. And for Tim, they add to 84. All right. Now the next thing we need to do is figure out what seems like a fair share to each player. Okay, so there's 4 players, so we're just going to divide the total by 4 in each case. 30, 30, 144 divided by 4 is 36, and 84 divided by 4 is 21. All right, now it's time to put the markers in. So for Quentin, a fair share is 30. So 12 and 7 is 19, and 7 is 26, and 4 is 30. So Quentin's first one goes there. 7 and 12 is 19, and 12 more is 31. Not perfect, but there's his second marker. 10, 18, 25, 29. Basically at 30, there's his third marker. Ramon is also 30. So 9 and 5 is 14. 10 more is 24. 5 is 29. There's Ramon's first marker. All right. 9, 18, 29. There is, wait a minute, 18 and 11 is 29. There is Ramon's second marker. 10, 20, 30. There's Ramon's third marker. All right. Stefan is 36. So 8 and 7 is 15. 22, 28, 35. All right. That's pretty close to 36. 8 and 8 is 16. 14 is 30. 6 more is right on. That's 36. 6 and 6 is 12. 7 is 19. 6 is 25. 7 is 32. I'm going to go one more here for this one. Put S3 here. It's because at this point I've only got 32, which is 4 away from the 36. And at this point I have 38. So this is 38 is much closer to 36 than 32 was. All right, last one is Tim. He has 21 per fair share. So 5, 13, 21. I'm sorry, 5, 9, 13, 17, 21. There's Tim's first. 10 and 11 is 21. There's Tim's second. 1, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. All right, we'll put his third right there. So we have all of our markers in place now. Next, we find the first marker with a 2 in it, which is here, R2. The next step is that we need to calculate the fair share for each of our players. First, we need the total, and then we'll get the fair share. I'll abbreviate that FS. So I get up my calculator, add up all the numbers across. For Quentin, it was 120. For Ramon, it's 120. For Stefan, it was 144. And for Tim, it was 84. And then since there are 4 players, the fair share is just going to be the total divided by the 4. So 30, 30, 36, and 20. Now we're ready to put in our markers. Starting with Quentin's row, since a fair share is 30, we'll put in a marker every 30 or as close to it as we can get. 12 and 7 is 19. 7 more is 26. 4 is 30. There is Quentin's first marker. 19 and 12 is 31. That's about as close as we're going to get. There's Quentin's second marker. 10, 18, 25, 29. There's Quentin's third marker. All right, now for Ramon. Ramon is also 30. 9, 19, 29. There's Ramon's first marker. 18 and 29. There's Ramon's second marker. 10, 20, 30. There's Ramon's third marker. Stefan, this is 36. 15 and 13 is 28. 7 is 35. There's Stefan's first marker. 16 and 14 is 30, and 6 more is 36. There's a second marker. 12, 19, 25, 32. Well, here it would be 32, and after that one it's 38. Well, 38 is much closer to our mark of 36 than 32, so I'm just going to put the marker here. Sometimes that's the best you can do. It just won't be perfect. Tim's is at 21. So 5, 9, 17, 21. There's Tim's first marker. 10, 17, 21. There's Tim's second marker. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. There is Tim's third marker. All right, we have all of our markers in. That answers the first part of the question. Let me pull this next question up higher, and we'll go after this one. All right. Describe the allocation of comic books to each player, and describe what comic books are left over. Which comic books and how many does Quentin receive? Now we follow the allocation rules. So we start at the left and we come to the first marker. It's Q1, right? So Quentin receives his first group here, these first 4, and it's a B, a G, and an S. Okay? So now we take Quentin's out of the mix because Quentin's done. and we go to the first marker we come to from the right, the first 2 marker. It's here, it's Ramon's, all right? So Ramon gets his group 2, that's these 3 right here, right? Between Ramon 1 and Ramon 2, it's these 3, and that's B, B, and W. Okay, so Ramon is done. We'll take his out. Now we're looking for the first 3, right? And Tim's is the first marker 3. So Tim gets these ones here between his marker 2 and marker 3. And that Tim there gets S, S, G, S, S, G, S, G. And then the last group, the only person that doesn't have his yet, is Stefan, and he gets all the ones to the right of his 3rd marker. So that is GWW. If we want to summarize here, Quentin gets a B, 2 G's, and an S. Ruben gets 2 B's and a W. Tim gets 1, 2, 3 S's and 2 G's. And Stefan gets 1 G and 2 W's. Let's summarize. Quentin, 1 B, 2 G's, 1 S. Ramon, 2 B's, 1 W. Tim, 1, 2, 3 S's. I guess the S's should go over here, huh? 3 S's and 2 G's. And Stefan then gets 1 G and 2 W's. Alright, time for the last question, which is how many of each comic book is left over? The way to see that, if we go up here, you'll notice between Q1 and R1, was it here, right? There's one in the gap there, it was a G. So then between the R2 we took here, this one ended here, right? And then we took this one here, so it ended here. The next one we took started there. We have an S. Over here, between this one and this one, we have a G. Between the beginning of one and the end of the next, there's often, not always, but often a gap, right? So between there and there, we had our G, etc. These two, we had our S. And in here, we had another G. Time for the last question. How many of each comic book is left over? Really what this is they're asking us now, what's the surplus? Alright. The surplus are the ones that are between the end of one segment and the beginning of another. So like our first segment ended right here, right? At G. There's our Q1. So the next segment started here, and there's a G in the middle. So that one was left, it's going to be in the surplus. So our second segment that we picked ended here. And our third segment was the T one, it started here. That S is in the surplus. Okay, so this segment, our T segment, ended right there. And then our S segment started here, there's another one in the surplus. Sometimes there's no surplus, sometimes there's two even. One is pretty typical. Alright, so each of our segments had one surplus. We have a total of 3 pieces left in the surplus. That is the end of our question. And that is the end of this video. You are ready to go out and do your homework.